video games. Welcome to Filthy Casuals, a podcast about video games, hosted by two very kind and extremely knowledgeable boys. This is part 2 of our Game of the Year wrap-up. My name is Tommy Dassler, and with me, as per usual,
Ben Vanel here. We've taken a good week to really think about the top 5. We, the first half was good. It was a nice little look back over the year, but we needed some time to refresh and get serious about our fucking top 5.
I hadn't even written my top 5 yet. I just went out for the last week. I went on a vacation, went on a writer's retreat to sit down and figure out what 5 to 1 are.
Beautiful. Yeah, I kind of did, I went on like a backpacking holiday. I wanted to get in touch with, the locals, really get back to basics. And I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about spirituality. And I think that has really informed my top 5. I think in many ways I'm a different person from last week. So some of these might not even be games.
I went on a mindfulness retreat. I was up in the mountains in Japan with some monks, and it was just great to be up there and be able to ask them what their top 5 video games of the year are.
Yeah. They loved Mind's Eye up there. They were a big fan of that game. No one else did, but
yeah, they were
really into it.
People, it really says that I guess the rest of us there was something in it that we missed, that we weren't enlightened enough to be able to fully appreciate that game.
Exactly right. But I feel like, regardless of the actual choices on our list, our listeners will be more enlightened after listening to part 2 of the Filthy Casuals Game of the Year Spectacular.
Absolutely.
Now, how do I mention that the Game Awards are still going and we've seen a few things without breaking the illusion that we recorded this a week later?
We came back and we had a quick, some actual good stuff got announced in the hour and a bit that we were just recording. And I'm sure if there is anything truly mind-blowing, it's still to come.
Yes, very true. But we will have talked about this weeks ago, so let's not annoy the audience. Let's get into our top 5 video games of the year. We're going to do that. We're going to I've got a fair few honorable mentions and a few games that are, we kind of touched on this in part 1, but games that I just didn't play enough to consider, games that I was enjoying but literally played one or 2 hours of, and some games I didn't play. We'll call out perhaps some of those at the end, but and like you called out last week, Tommy, probably gonna have a bit of crossover here in the old top 5, but probably at least 5 games that are going to generate some good discussions, if not a couple more. We'll see what the crossover is. For anyone who has forgotten what happened last week, previously on this 2-part episode, we discussed Islanders New Shores, Citizen Sleeper 2, Ball Pit, Promise Mascot Agency, Hollow Knight Silk Song. We also had on Tommy's list some other games.
10. At number 10, Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, Hollow Knight Silk Song at number 9. At number 8, Claire Obscure Expedition 33. At number 7, Ball Pit. And at number 6, Ghost of Yote.
That's right, yes.
That's both of our 10 to 6, but shall we get this ball rolling by getting into our number 5s? What do you think?
Let's do it, Tommy. You were going first in part 2, so let's keep the pattern. Would you like to reveal your 5th favorite game of 2025?
I would love nothing more than to tell you that my number 5 game of 2025, Kirby Air Riders.
Oh, shit, brother. We won't be discussing that. We won't be discussing that higher in the list because that was one of the games that I just didn't feel like I'd played enough of. But fucking take it away, Tommy. What a great game.
Yeah, a game that, as we were saying, at the start of the year, we didn't know that it was on the slate. And not only that, I don't think anyone expected it to be on the slate. A sequel to a game from 20-something years ago that had its fans but was not popular either critically or commercially. The fact that it's Sakurai developing it, when I think people assumed if he was going to be doing anything, it would be a new Smash Brothers. I was not in the camp of people who ever played the first one. I went into this sort of thinking it looked cool and like there was a lot in it, thinking it might be fine, but maybe not for me. I don't know. And then it just really won me over. It is so fun. It is another video gamey ass video game.
Yes.
And it's another game that is just more than the sum of its parts. It did seem weird at the start of the year, knowing that Nintendo was kicking off its new console generation with a Mario Kart and then another racing game within a few months. But it is, of all the things that this game is, racing game feels like it's kind of down the bottom of the list of things that it's doing. It's kind of, it sort of makes total sense that you would think that this and Mario Kart can exist in the same year and not be eating into each other's potential audiences. It is more like a fighting game with movement around a track than it is just a straight up and down racing game. And I think, it complements Mario Kart so well. Like the things that are not as present in Mario Kart, this does so well. The machines and the characters that you're picking have way more of an impact on how the races turn out than just slightly changing your speed or acceleration or handling. They all have like different abilities and completely different ways that they control, and you almost do feel like you're playing a completely different game if you pick one of the different machines. And then this incredibly compelling mechanic of having combat around the course that is not just... This sounds like I'm knocking Mario Kart. I'm not, but I know that a lot of people, their frustration with a lot of the Nintendo party games is that it all comes down to a lot of luck and random things kind of happening. Like Mario Party is very guilty of that. Obviously, Mario Kart, you can be doing great and then still get hit by the blue shell. And it's not anything to do with your skill, but you just get wiped out and then you potentially are completely starting over and there's nothing you can do to avoid that. All of the moves, all of the combat in Air Riders is completely up to skill. There's no like random luck of this thing coming up or getting this item or getting hit by this item. It is purely like if you figure out how to play this game and get good at all the mechanics, which are all so simple to pick up. It's one button. It's very overwhelming when you start playing it because there is too much stuff going on. But it just, the moment to moment of driving around these tracks and swallowing enemies to get powers, attacking people to get a little speed boost, it all just feels so good. It looks beautiful. The checklist mode of like going through and unlocking things by having a little list of things that you have to do in each race, and that being the thing single player wise that inspires you to go, all right, I'll do, oh, okay, you've got to do, this track in under a minute. All right, I'll try and do that one. Having a very compelling story mode to it that has some really nice, fun, cool stuff at the end. The way that you are constantly just unlocking stuff. The city trial mode has gotten its hooks into me now. I thought that would be the thing that I would gel with the least. And it was the thing that took me the longest to sort of get around to. This game has so many things that it is doing that only it does, that it is kind of the city trial mode being effectively this big battle mode where the stuff that you are doing in the arena can kind of end up not mattering at all because you do all of that in order to build up a machine to do this one little mini game that might be some 5-second thing that is over super quickly, and whether you win or not can feel like quite arbitrary. Like it doesn't feel like much of the skill that you're displaying in the arena mode of the city trial it means that you're then going to win the next part of it and therefore have won the whole thing. Like the arena, in a sense, is kind of all for nothing. Like you can drive around, you can wipe a lot of people out, you can win a lot of the different things, you can have collected the most number of the pickups in there, and it still might not mean that you win the high jump mode that you end up, randomly being assigned to at the end of it. But once you just accept this game on its terms, and again, Sakurai is a guy who often like the modes that are in his games don't make a ton of sense when you look at them at first, or they seem like, why is it like this? But it's not a failing. It's just what he's thought is fun and funny. And, once you realize, oh, yeah, you play this 5-minute round and then maybe you don't win the little mini game at the end, but it doesn't matter. Like, you just, I don't know, you came third.
You're still having fun.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even if you're playing with people in the same room, it's like, yeah, the point is to clown around and have, I'm sure you can get to a point where you're playing it in a much more strategic way, because the way to actually play it is to not get as many of the pickups as you can, because that might, you can end up with something that is that the handling is too high and the top speed is too high. And you're just careening around the level. So you can go in there with an idea of like, I only want to build a machine that can just fly for as long as possible. So I'm just going to get gliding. I'm just going to try and find one of the vehicles that is like best for flight. You can get into it in that mode, or you can just be rolling around, smashing shit. Like all of the kinetic different things in this game just feel so good. It's just one of the main games for me this year that just felt all of the little bits that you do, just how they feel to control and move, and when something happens, and just even being in the menus. It's just such an incredibly full package, even though on the surface it's a racing game without a Grand Prix mode, and it's these essentially two modes. There's not a ton of tracks in it. The city trial mode only has like the one map. You control it with one button. Like, it all seems so simplistic, but it's really incredible like how much there is buried in this once it washes over you to keep coming back to. And this really does feel like a game that I'll keep coming back to for a long time. And like, yeah, I was hopeful it would be good, but I had no attachment to it previously, and it just completely surprised me how much I ended up enjoying it.
It really feels like one of those like creative writing prompts where you're restricted to, this is like, or like a game jam competition where the parameter is like, make a game that only uses one button plus directional inputs. And the restriction tends to, in those kind of things, produce the most innovative, creative, and interesting end results. And, like Sakurai even said in one of the directs, like, jokingly, unfortunately, we added a second button because it does feel like his whole concept was, can I make a game that's fun and interesting and exciting and thrilling that only uses one button for input? And maybe the first one wasn't as successful at doing that, but he's had such a great career since then, and he's applied all of his knowledge of game design. And I think he's worked with and hired the right people to do stuff like sound effects, UI design, controller tuning, all of that shit, because it's just so fun to play. It's this seamless, polished experience that offers something that's, completely unique. It is, like you said, it's a fighting game on wheels. It's a car combat game done in a completely different and unique style. Visually it has the fantastic hallmarks of the Kirby series, which are so unique and so fun and so cool, but almost like it's almost funny how frantic and not violent, but aggressive, I guess, this game is compared to every other Kirby game. It I don't know, it just works for some reason. And the only reason this is not on my list, it is an honorable mention for me, is because I didn't put as much time into it as you've been able to so far, Tommy. You finished the road trip mode. I'm only a couple of stages into that. But
I finished it twice.
It's so fun. Yeah, exactly.
I finished it twice, and then it is really one of those ones where when you get your playtime counter, it's surprising how much of it you've played, because every time you're playing it is just a short little burst. So it doesn't, it's not like you sit in a Death Stranding and you go like, oh, I did these 5 missions, which were each, I was completely traversing the entire map. It is really surprising to look at that counter and go like, oh shit, I've played 20 hours worth of this.
Yes.
It just, the incongruity too of it being the Kirby characters, I love when everything about this mechanically, you would think it would make more sense to have it be a new IP with some new characters that are a little more, maybe it's a little more futuristic, a little more edgy. It's like car combat. It's like all of this crazy speed and attacks and abilities and all this kind of stuff. But the fact that it is these cute little characters, all of which are mostly little shapes with eyes on them, and then it being so frantic and so hardcore with the level of depth that's there is, I just think that's really cool and fascinating. And it feels like an indie game in the sense of it being something that is completely unique and quite simplistic. It does feel like one of those cool things that is like one person's idea that just comes out of nowhere, that marries these things together where you think like, oh yeah, this is so cool that someone thought to do this and was able to carry it out so effectively. And also just to go back to something we were talking about in the last episode, the first one coming out and, you know, it finding its cult audience, but it coming out at a time where, you know, it just gets a couple of sixes in the magazines and kind of that's it. Yeah. And this game coming out in a very, you know, online culture where people are sharing clips and coming to it in a different way, and all of these people that loved the previous one, there's now like a whole community around that. Is, yeah, it's cool to be a part of something that people are just really frothing on, like all of the weirdness and the depth that is in this game, and feels like a beautiful redemption for a game that probably didn't quite got a bit of a raw deal back in the day, and getting to deliver on the promise of that all these years later is sick. It's sick that they let him do it. It's sick that they were confident to just let this be one of the big tentpole first year releases for this console. It's great. And again, in that Switch 2 unveiling, so many kind of like weird moves for this year where it's like, this is what, I love it when they get into taking these like kind of odd risks with their software.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, we talked a bit about how cool it is for smaller studios to make a big impact. You know, we talked about Claire Obscure last week and how that's cool, and it could be, you know, potentially a signifier for the rest of the industry. But then on the other hand, you know, Sakurai has to have made, you know, whatever it is, 5-6 installments of one of the biggest and most popular fighting games that features hundreds of licensed characters for him to get, you know, to get the go ahead to make a sequel to one of his original interesting ideas. But hey, he made the deal with the devil, aka Shigeru Miyamoto, and we got a great game out of it.
I kind of hope he does just. He's so good at making Smash, obviously, but I really hope that. I think that series is probably ready for something kind of fresh to happen with it, and I would love to see him pass it over to someone and keep doing different weird shit like this. I think he's got more in him than just Smash is such a known quantity now. I'd love to see him, get into some of these weirder areas.
It's funny because you know, if we weren't living in the economy we were living in, it would make sense to just be like, well, Smash Ultimate is the ultimate Smash. Like, it has every character you could imagine. It's so deep. It's so, you know, intricate and polished and fun. Why does there need to be another one? Can't this great artistic creator go on to make something that he wants to make that's brand new? But of course, the only alternative there is that, no, someone else just keeps making Smash because it is going to make so much money.
I think that's a valid point too, especially when the new console is backwards compatible. So the idea of just making another new one with all the same characters and you add 2 in feels pointless when people can just get the previous one on their current console. Still looks great. Graphically, there's not really much more they can bother doing with it. So I think, like, a lot of the franchises that are on the Switch 1 that are carrying over, like, they probably are having to think, like, all right, well, to justify this,
right?
You know, we do have to go in a slightly different direction with it. But hey, that's a discussion for the Game of the Year 2027 episode.
Well, you know, you said about Kirby Air Riders that you know, it's distinct from other racing games because it doesn't have the sort of randomness of a blue shell or the uncontrollable elements. So much in Kirby Air Riders is it's not random. It's because you just decided to do it. It makes sense. The race, the track designs. They drop certain enemies in certain places, so it's a little bit more. You can plan ahead. But as the great Werner Herzog said, I believe the common denominator of the universe is not harmony, but chaos. And that is why my number 5 game of the year is Mario Kart World.
Oh.
Woohoo! Mario time.
I don't have this on my list. Just kidding.
I presume we will talk more about this game later on.
Yep.
Bitch, don't you hit me with my number 4 is Mario Kart World.
My number 4, I know you love chaos, but
yes,
I guess this game has an element of chaos to it. My number 4 game of the year for 2025 is Blueprints.
Oh, we will be talking about that later on.
Now we get into some pretty fun areas, don't we?
That's right. Number 4. We're up to number 4. This is the time to talk about a game we both really enjoyed this year, a sequel to a game that we took a little time to get our little butts around. But when we did, we really went cheeks in. Ghost of Yotei is my number 4 game.
Yeah.
And I bloody love this game.
It's my number 6, and I bloody love it too. It is not in the top 5 for me, purely because everything in my top 5 is doing something that I feel is a little new and fresh and really bowled me over with being a bit unique. And I think that Ghost of Yotei is fantastic and does everything it's doing to an incredibly high level, but there's no part of it where I'm like, holy shit, this is you know what I mean? Like, there's no part of it that feels like I'm playing a version of something for the first time.
Right.
Which is the only reason it's not in my top 5. That was my distinction, because for most of my games on my list could really interchange around places quite easily. But yeah, this game, I think the more we were seeing of it in the lead up, we were excited for, but I felt like I had high expectations and it exceeded them, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare that a game can like dazzle you these days just based on like how good the graphics are. You know, we've been very lucky in that we have had some games with some really distinctive visual styles that have been unique and have been, pushing the boundaries of what art can be in games. But Ghost of Yotei for me is one of the few games that came along this year where I was just like, fuck, this looks good. Fuck, the bloody grass looks real. Fuck, that sunset's sick. And it is such a high achiever in graphical fidelity and the way it's employed in an artistic way. It, like you were saying last week, you don't get a lot of big AAA exclusives on the PS5, but when they do come along, you got to take advantage of them. You got to sink into them because this is what AAA gaming looks like in 2025. And on top of that, it continues the I guess probably unique-ish approach to combat for a third-person open-world action game. Like the way that you, the samurai combat is somewhat referencing samurai films where you kind of have a static position almost. It's not just like lock on and you're following people around. It's a little bit different to that. And it took some getting used to in the first game, but the combat is incredibly fun when you get the multiple different weapon types in this one. Switching between them, knowing which one to use at the right time is very rewarding. The bosses of the little camps and forts that they've been occupied by, all of those guys were unique and fun to fucking beat the shit out of. And I think what made this definitely more enjoyable and more, I don't know, I had more respect for this game compared to the predecessor was the main character was really, really interesting, really well performed, and I was engaged with their story. Whereas Jin from Tsushima was very much a almost boring stereotypical protagonist where he had honor and he wanted to save his home. And yeah, the conflict within Atsu was way more engaging and really, really well explored in Ghost of Yotei.
It's just such a classic template too. Like it just the way it gets you right in there. You see all this stuff early on. You just know the mission that you're on. It's such a great. It's a setting of a format for a lot of great films, but it just works so well for a video game where it's like you've got these 6 areas to go to. There's a cunt in each of them that you got to kill. It's classic, and it's like that is the thing that video games sometimes struggle with. Is like, you know, they either lean into the video game-ness of like, oh, there's 6 keys that you need to get or whatever, but like this just tracks in a very real way, and even though it is a perfect video game setup, it doesn't feel video gamey, which is cool. It just felt so much more confident right from the jump in comparison to the previous one. And it is an example of something that is, while it's not doing anything brand new, it is just doing everything so well. Like it's just, it's true. As much as it's exciting when something comes along that you've just got no precedent for, just a real, these open world style games are a real comfort food thing to people. And, you know, because we've all done enough versions of them. So there are conventions to that are just comforting. You get into it and you know the early things are going to be leading you around the map, and you're going to have this type of quest and this type of quest, but it still has some nice little moves in there. Like the bounties again is just basically a version of just an optional side quest thing, but the way they're presented makes it feel like such a new, fresh thing, and they've each kind of got something to them that is more than just... I think most people find the side things in these games pretty easy to ignore because they're just like, oh, can you go find my cat? You know, they're not going to be anything too interesting, or the rewards might not be very compelling, but yeah, when it is like you're looking at this poster and it's like this guy kills people and then steals their hats and puts their hats on the, you know, like there's always some weird little story to all these guys. So, you know, even if, like you're not getting a decent reward from the doing of the quest, like the person that you meet and the thing that you see in the area that you go to will be interesting. And just also as a role-playing thing, it's like, it's easy to buy into. Like, yeah, I'm running around being a bounty hunter. Like, I want to do all these tasks. Whereas, yeah, if you're just, I don't know, some random character in a third-person game and it's like, hey, can you go get me a sandwich? You're like, why would I do that? I'm trying to fucking save the world here, cunt.
And especially those bounties, often as you get deeper into the game, the kind of they often subvert the expectations. Like there's one that really sticks out in my mind where, you know, you go to capture or kill this bounty and they've just been in a fight and they're dying, and they're like, well, you know, I'm going to let you take my mask, collect the bounty, but would you just like spend my dying hours with me and sit at the fire with me and chat? You know, and that kind of stuff. It feels like they're making a real effort to make everything in the game, even if it's on its face quite formulaic, to make it feel unique, to make it have a reason to exist, on top of just being fun to play and fun to do the combat, which it is as well. I feel like it does that really well. Just even the merchants at the camps that kind of follow you around, they all have their own little characters. Some are more interesting than others, but like, yeah, the bounty guy is cool and he gives you his own quest later on. The guy making the maps is funny. Like, yeah, there's just this great level of detail and storytelling behind most things in the game. And then there's the exploration, there's the customization, collecting weapon kits, collecting masks and costumes. They're always attached to some kind of challenge, and the challenge themselves is usually interesting. Like, it's just like you said, hasn't reinvented the open world action game, but it's done it to an A+ level in my opinion.
I think I think the reinvention is just like they're so boilerplate, and we go in and they feel this isn't changing it up, but it just doesn't feel lazy, I think is the main thing.
Yes.
Is that you kind of feel like in the most dull examples of them that they were just developed with their eyes closed because there is such an easy
Yeah.
convention to follow. And I don't quite have an answer for how they've done this, but they are still doing those conventions, but it doesn't feel like it's just been churned out or whatever.
Yeah.
It all feels very like, it still weirdly feels like the first time you're playing a version of this, even though it's definitely not.
Yes, and I think there's another game that came out this year that was very similar, but probably even bigger in scope and took longer to complete and had more side quests. And I think it was a fine game, but it was not an exceptional game. But it didn't feel like it had both more and better, side quests. The content was not all better. And it was polished, but it was probably also copied and pasted. And I feel like the kind of attention to differentiating everything you do in Ghost of Yotei is, why it feels more fun to play, because it feels like more care and more curation has gone into those familiar tropes and familiar kind of tasks. But I played this game all the way through and went back for more. It's so fun, so good looking. It's my number 4 game of the year.
Environmental design of any game this year. It's just like
when you talk about realistic design, I think it's up there.
It's the only game I've felt compelled to play in quality ray tracing mode, because it really does make a difference. Like the lighting and the sun coming through the foliage and just all those little things to me are like why you're playing the game and what they really excel at. I think it's a game that is very segmented in the areas that you're going to, and you get excited to go to a new bit because it's not just like it's a new little corner of the map. You know that it's going to have an interesting visual identity to it and just have some stunning vistas, and again done in a way where it all feels organic and it does feel like the real world and not just like a contained like built map. It's a beautiful looking game.
It really is. So
all right, we're up to number 3. My number 3 game of the year is Mario Kart World.
All right, let's talk World. The launch game for the Nintendo Switch 2 came in that little bloody bundle that I lined up at midnight for and took
That's
home.
right.
It is by far the game I've played the most with my partner this year.
Same.
Remains the perfect party game, the perfect game to play with friends. But they switched it up a fair bit with this one.
I mean, we were so overdue for a new Mario Kart, and it's weird. Well, actually, no, because we did a special zone on the history of Mario Kart, and what I kind of found when I was looking that up is that I always have assumed that all of them are just these like smash hits that everyone loves, but nearly all of them have had some contentious part to them in at least the critical consensuses at the time, where graphically they're not up to scratch or they're lacking in content or whatever it is. And this game, I think it is surprising to me that they still have not added anything to this game yet. They may well be announcing that at the exact moment that we're speaking at the Game Awards. But they've done some little tweaks here and there and some update patches, but I think like the fact that Donkey Kong Bonanza got some DLC like a month after it had been out, I think most people assumed there would be maybe like constant small updates of new costumes and characters and cars and whatever. Does feel like they're probably holding that over for a beefier update in the next few months. And the open, not open world, but the like one big interconnected map nature of it, I know has rubbed some people, or like not delivered in the way that some people wanted it to, but I think it's just fantastic. And I would have loved a map exploration story mode kind of thing, but you could kind of tell in the lead up the way they were showcasing these things in the directs and the presentations. The free roam mode was always like mentioned as a bit of an afterthought. So I was I was sort of braced for that to be a thing where you just kind of drive around and do some shit here and there. I would love
Yeah.
there to be more in it, and maybe one day there will be. At the very least, I would love it to be easier to track where the switches are. But
Yes.
as much as I wish there was a little more to that, every time I've done a session of doing some Grand Prix or some knockout tours or whatever, and then it takes you back to the main screen and it's just kind of showing you a little, video of a character driving around the map, and then you can just push the start button and go straight into free roam from there. And I'll often be like, oh yeah, this is a little area I wouldn't mind poking around. And then next thing, it's an hour and a half, and I've stumbled on a couple of switches in a bit where I thought I'd kind of found everything, and just driving around doing stuff. And I think, people having complaints that the intermission tracks are just a straight line, or the highway stuff is not that interesting. I kind of feel like that's to me what makes the world feel believable and the map feel interesting, is that it's got these crazy tracks, but then there are just freeways in between them, and the freeways have lots of nice visual stuff kind of happening on them. I just think the what they've pulled off with this map is so impressive, and I love all the different little quadrants of it, and it's like kind of the first Mario game that it feels like it gives a real sort of context to there being like a world of Mario, where all of these different little visual motifs that are in the levels and tracks of Mario platformers and Mario Kart games all existing in the one shared space, and having a little ecosystem where the weather's like this up here and the weather's like this down here. We've never had that before. So even just like seeing the glimpses of that come to actualization is super cool. And I think the knockout tour mode is just such an amazing new move for this series. Again, something that, to my knowledge, doesn't... I guess the Forza games have a version of like longer races that you do, but certainly not in the like pick up and play, very like casual, accessible kind of manner that this is. Like, this feels like something... other than the fact that you then also have to like build these giant maps, but the Battle Royale racing game does feel like a thing that is going to be copied and built upon by other developers for the next decade or so. Like, it just, from playing this hands-on at the Switch 2 event and kind of seeing it in the trailers and thinking it looked cool, but then as soon as you go hands-on with it, just going like, oh, this is what the game is. It doesn't really matter like what exists in the free roam mode, because this is the home run. This is so fucking fun. And I just love how it feels going from one end of the map to the other and seeing the environments change, and you kind of get that gradual thing where the desert stuff starts coming in, or some trees start to pop up and then you're in the jungle. It really drives home that you're in this one big world. And I think it's just such a smart move by them. It's so fun.
And even just having challenges in the open world part, like that's fun. That was not something I expected. Having the things of like, like drive over this dinosaur from head to tail, or, like be good enough at drifting to like collect these coins in this really tight, like spiral shape, or like just adding that stuff in, regardless of whether you think there's enough, racing in the open world or not.
They're pretty
having that stuff
simplistic.
at all
They're
is
pretty
cool.
They're fairly one note, and they're fairly simplistic, but they work, and some of them are really challenging. And I know a lot of people, the criticism was that they were frustrated that there's not like more meaningful rewards that you get for doing them. But it kind of reminds me of like a, like the Tears of the Kingdom, and Breath of the Wild, like all of the side stuff you do in that is like your reward is like an apple. There's XP doesn't exist in those games. You're barely ever getting anything very meaningful. And it is this really nice, I think, I agree. I would love if more stuff was unlocked behind doing that. I'd love if there was like a little more progression, a little more point to it. But I also really respect the design philosophy that just like, no, the reward is that you got to do a fun little thing. This is the reward. You have the time in your life to be able to sit down and do this. You've given yourself an hour off from working and whatever your responsibilities are, is this not enough? And it is. We are all so conditioned to be like, oh, I get a new character if I do this, or I get a new costume, or I get, I level up or whatever. But like, yeah, I had so many nights just in the middle of winter where I would just be cruising around, doing my free roams, finding my little switches. And I guess the other big reward of that mode is that you are listening to a soundtrack of some of the best music that's ever been made, all re-recorded and remixed and rearranged. And yeah, just that it feels like it would be stupid for them to have built this big map and then not have a version where you can just fuck around on it and do whatever you want. And I feel like when you were a little kid and you'd play Mario Kart 64, you'd be like trying to drive to Peach's castle in the middle of the Royal West. Like you would be like, oh, I wish I could just not do the race and just kind of explore and fuck around and like, testing the different cars out, zipping around. I'm sure for like little kids, they love it because it like takes you out of the brutality of how full on and unfair Mario Kart can be, especially if you're like newer at video games. But I just thought like design wise, and I mean this game looks stunning as a centerpiece as a launch game to really show off. Like even though it is really staying in its lane with the art style and the art direction, like the lighting looks great. It's not really ever going for realism, but it is there's some sky effects and some cloud effects that are sort of the closest they've ever come to doing stuff like that. And with the HDR and everything, like it just running at beautifully smooth 60 frames a second. And yeah, a lot of people seemed to think it was an odd choice to have Mario Kart be the launch title, but it's like it sold more than any other game on the previous console. So I totally bought it. And yeah, I'm just frothing on there being more added to this game, because I think that I do feel like this will be something that they stick with for a long time, and that in a couple of years it'll feel unrecognizable from what it is now, with the amount of characters and costumes and the idea that they could bring in another map or lay some new challenges over the top of this one, put some new knockout tours in. I do want a knockout tour that takes you right around through all of the tracks in the game. Would be awesome.
Yes. That feels like a no-brainer. Because, the only criticism or the only feedback I have to Nintendo about this game is that I want more. And I don't necessarily mean I don't want more in the free roam. The free roam is what it is. And that was the way that I did unlock most of the costumes. I played a couple of Grand Prix and was like, this is really fun. But now I'm free roaming. And I was switching between characters, and I was eating up the little Yoshi meals,
same.
That's how I was unlocking the costumes, and that's how I was exploring the map. And the smoothness with which you transition from one to the next, where the weather will change and the atmosphere will change, and the gradual, imperceptible kind of transitions that are it's all so impressively done. It's incredibly polished. And while it doesn't necessarily reimagine the art style, I think, as you said, placing it in a world that is half believable in the context of it being a Mario game, where you're seeing the construction signs and Donkey Kong and, the girders, and you're seeing, the jungles and, the dinosaurs that would be on the side of previous tracks, and, Donkey Kong's the kind of jungle walkway and the Shy Guys skiing down the mountain, like all of that stuff. I think I give that a nostalgia pass because it's nostalgic for me, and it's just executed in such a fun way. It's so polished, and then the racing is really, really fun, and it's so enjoyable to play with someone else, split screen. The online stuff is fantastic. The track design is fucking impeccable, and I just want more. I just can't wait for more examples of it.
It is really hard to imagine a game that's like better tuned in terms of how it feels to race around in these cars. I love the additions of like the cars kind of like wobble around when you bump each other, like just the physics of it, the like wall riding, the grinding is all new in this one. Yeah, just so good.
So damn good. I just want to put more stickers on my car and
Yes.
have a few more costumes. Just throw us a few bones. And if they do what they did for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with the track packs and all that stuff, like you say, in a few years' time, this will be unrecognizably fucking deep and complex and full of content. But what is there now is, for me, the fifth best game of this year. I think it's so much fun. And I'm glad to be starting a new generation of Mario Kart. It's, there's only more good shit to come, I imagine.
100%. My number 3 game of the year.
Well, my number 3 game of the year, I imagine we'll have to wait to talk about it in depth. It is, Banana. Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Yes.
I suspect that I'll have to wait a little bit to talk about this, which makes me think that our number 2 game of the year might be the same.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. My number 2 game of the year is Death Stranding 2 on the Beach.
You got it, baby. Neil Young's
Okay.
greatest album. Hideo Kojima, the man who we saw in person and bowed at the feet of, has delivered another fucking banger. Better than the first Death Stranding, which we both ended up loving, but took a little bit to get to grips with. Man. For me, this is the best video game story of the year. It has some of the most compelling characters of the year. It is incredibly fun to play. It's challenging. The visual design is top shelf. For me, this is the best, traditional video game of the year. For me, this is the best run around and fight people and do quests and talk to people game of the year. It's fucking impeccable and so creative, so unique. I just couldn't put it down. I fucking love this game.
There are a lot of, most of the games on my list are games that were very fun to play, and this is fun to play, but I think for me, the compelling thing about it is how do I say this? Just the vibe of all of it, and sitting down for a session of this game and the mindset that you're in and the kind of, the role-playing nature of it, where you're so absorbed into this world and this character and the things that you're doing, more so than any other game that, all has its fun, cool things to it, but is more moment to moment, just zippy and fun. Or just I don't know, feels different, but just I don't know, a lot of the late nights of settling in and the way that you plot other games give you missions and then you're like, off I go, and you just do them. But the fact that in this you really have to sit down with that map and you have to draw yourself a little route, and then maybe halfway through you're like, I've accidentally taken myself through the most fucked place I could. So I got to open that map up again and rethink this and look at it a little more. It's just really it's just that experience of being immersed in the world in a real way, where you're I am this guy. I'm doing this stuff.
It's because of the nature of the game, and it's 100%, I think, the purpose and the aim of Kojima. It is a mindful game. You have to be completely present. You have to be focused. It's not always because there's someone attacking you. Sometimes it's because you just have a long way to go and you need to climb over a mountain. But it is a game where you are, just you are so present and so mindful of everything that's occurring. And it just feels great. It feels, it's not always, like you say, it's not like playing Mario Kart. It's a completely different experience. In many ways, a different experience from every other game except for the previous game in this series. It is so unique. And
it's even fairly different from that in a lot of ways.
Yes, absolutely. Introducing things like rescuing animals, and then, sort of the related random kind of weather events. Just the cast of bizarre side characters are so fun and have such cool and interesting writing for them. The main story is, completely bizarre, but by the end of it, I think makes some sense and has an actually
Yep.
relatable emotional core to it, which I do think was maybe
Yes.
my issue with the previous one. It was so obtuse and absurd and high concept that it was interesting, but kind of more in a schlocky way almost. Whereas this one was like, yeah, I believe that this guy cares about this child. I believe that these people care about this guy. And the saving the world stuff is kind of incidental, It's more about the people and their journey. There was some genuinely emotionally effective moments in this game, which, it was just so impressive. And it also
The
just
ending
looks
really got
fucking
me in a
cool.
pretty big way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
think that like it, we talked a lot about how, for me in particular, I bounced off the first one originally and then got to grips with it, and it is deliberately a game that is like fighting against you when you start playing it, and then this one really stripping a lot of that back and really feeling like it's rewarding you for having figured out the first one, where it just gets you all of the vehicles so much quicker. It just gets you all of the fun stuff. It's just throwing new fun shit at you to make the journey a little easier or a little more bombastic, or like however you want to do it, almost straight away in a way that, and I mean this in a good way, kind of feels like a DLC thing of just like, you've played the first one, you don't need to... we don't need to, introduce a thing where Sam's forgotten how to walk and you've got to learn how to do all of that again. Like, he did all the stuff in the first game, so that experience carries over. And yeah, as much as I loved that experience of the first one and the difficulty of it and getting to a point where it clicked, I really respected that this one was just like, yeah, let's just have fun. Let's just get you the good shit really quickly.
And then build on things that weren't as fun in the first one. The first game, I just avoided combat the whole time. And there's certainly, I'm sure there are people who have played the entirety of the sequel in stealth mode, have not engaged with combat, have found ways to distract enemies. But I think you are really rewarded in this one for engaging in combat, using all the different weapons. Like, it's not impossible to run up to, one of those big factories that are filled with robots and just fucking go in guns blazing. And
yes,
I love that about it. I loved having the option. And when I did choose that option, it being fun and exciting and easy to control, like that was again something that, while it may have been seen by some as a step to reduce the difficulty or the challenge of the game, I just thought it was a step to make the game more fun. And I definitely had more fun with those aspects of it.
And to differentiate it too. Like I
Yeah,
said, we went through that in the first one. And so the point of difference here is that, it gives you all of these tools to be able to interact with this map in a different way. I loved the monorail thing that you're building.
Yes.
The experience of being online and seeing these roads and things get built for you in between play sessions. The side stuff is always very compelling and fun. The weird new little people that you meet. And just the design and the feeling and like his choice of music, I think, is better in this one, and the way that it kind of drops those licensed songs in bits where you've just done a big mission and then you're driving back, and it has this very cinematic thing where a song starts playing, is done so well. I loved this game. This is I don't know if I would necessarily have the time to come back to it in the way that I would with other games that are a lot of fun, that are a lot easier to kind of like go back in and jump in for a little bit and fuck around.
To have a little sesh,
Yeah, this does require you to kind of sit and lock in with all of it, but definitely like the first one, something that is just in its writing and tone and what it's saying and everything is just going to be stuck with me for the rest of my days.
Absolutely. I think it has the scope of the first one, beaten. You know, it's elevated, I think. Some of the stuff that happens towards the end, sort of the giant sort of interactions with these creatures and these, huge, expansive ocean views and beaches covered with detritus and fucking corpses, and a genuine emotional story about, grief and letting go. It has the cast of characters that are with you the whole time. Fragile's an interesting character. Tarman's a fucking cool character. His backstory is insane, and so bizarre, but it is also a relatable human story. Doll Man is, of course, side character of the year. Just so
100%.
funny, but also kind of upsetting and eerie. Adds this, really interesting tone to the game. And then also you fight a guy on top of a fucking creature smashing guitars together. It's just it has everything. It has everything
And
you could
this whole
possibly
time,
need.
You're in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that it needed points, but it got extra points for being down under.
Yep. What a fantastic game.
Great game.
Well, my number one game of the year, Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Oh, yeah.
Your number three? What was it
Yep.
for you?
Yeah, number 3.
Yep.
Yes.
Could not believe when this got announced. Seemed like such a left field move. The trailer starting up as a one more thing at the Switch 2 reveal.
Yes.
Thinking these are some areas in a Mario game.
Yeah.
DK having this redesign, which again is contentious for some reason, even though it's not much of an overhaul at all, but he looks great. He looks very cute.
Yeah.
He looks very endearing. It being the Odyssey devs, it being an extension of that formula with this new gameplay idea that on the surface seemed maybe a little bit, superficial or whatever, but is so fun and opens up so many possibilities. And I don't think Odyssey is my favorite strain of Mario 3D platformer, but I think that formula works so well for a game like this, where the very random nature of the way that some moons were hidden in Odyssey got to be a bit of a drag, whereas here you're smashing and you're bashing around. The fact that they, I think, made such a smart decision to, even though DK is so big and powerful and he's smashing around, he's so agile. He can still move around so quickly. He can climb.
Yeah, such a quick response time for the controls.
Yeah, you feel like you have more freedom of movement than you do in a Mario game, which is crazy because that's meant to be the whole point of Mario. But having gone back and played a couple of older 3D platformers recently, it's kind of jarring that you can't just climb up every surface and
right.
Get from A to B so easily. You're like, oh, that's over there. I can just smash my way through. But having the freedom to do anything, but then still have these challenges that are, you would think that would open you up to just it being very one note or things being easy. I think it's easy to underestimate the challenge of having a game that feels and controls like this and that be the central conceit, but still have things that are hidden and trying to find ways to, you always feel like you can do anything, but of course you can't, but the ways that it's blocking you off do feel very organic. They don't feel like, oh, they've just put a big wall there for no reason.
Right.
It all still feels contextual within the level, and yeah.
Yeah, often when you're playing a 3D platformer, and you've got to climb up the side of this thing and it's like, oh, there's some thorns there. You've got to go to the left and then you've got to dodge this. It's it just feels so prescriptive and also uninteresting, whereas it never feels that way in Donkey Kong Bonanza. Everything feels fun. It always feels like it's going to be fun to overcome this challenge that, like you say, feels contextual. It doesn't feel out of place or arbitrary.
Yeah.
It all makes sense within the story, within the design of each level, which all of them are so interesting and fun and bright and colorful, like for a game that is literally going down to the Earth's core.
Yeah.
You know, every time you break through to another layer, it's, you know, this joyful revelation of what you get to do next rather than what you have to overcome, even though that is what you're doing.
Yeah, there were some great areas that we hadn't seen in any of the preview stuff where, as you say, you're getting deeper and deeper down into the core, but they're not worried about logic. They're having like a beach level and some nice, like, yeah, I think also the fact that you can easily, if you're just smashing around everything, you can kind of accidentally jump ahead a couple of the beats and you can sequence break the game really easily. And I remember reading something about how Nintendo's philosophy used to be, here's how we want you to go from A to B. And with something like this and with Tears of the Kingdom, now they're really like, we actually don't care how you do it, just as long as you have fun while you're doing it. So you can, you know, in the last two Zelda games, you can go straight up to Ganon at the very beginning if you want. You can like subvert this bit and you can build a thing with the Ultra Hand to, you know, catapult you over this or whatever. And they used to be a lot more like, our games have to be played in this order, in this way. And now they're like, I mean, there's videos of people finishing this game without getting any of the Bonanza transformations.
Right.
Just being able to get to the very end in like 10 minutes or something by just doing a combination of rolls and jumps in the air and turf surfing and all that kind of stuff, which is sick. And there are a couple of things where I kind of went around not the wrong way, but like a way that the game didn't intend for me to go. And it never feels like, oh, I've broken this game or I've accidentally found this. It's just like, it's pretty happy for you to get in and get out however you want to do it.
Yeah. What else do I love about this game? The sound effects, like I said, are fucking spectacular, so memorable, provide such a, like, you know, you feel like the impact of something is going to be from like force feedback or from like an image on the screen, but it's honestly most of the time it is from the sound effect. It is from the quality of the sound effect feeling perfect, and they're just all perfect in this game. It's one of those things that you don't think about until you have to do it for a podcast. But yeah, this game, I think every sound effect is perfect for what it is applied to. It just works. It tricks the brain in the exact perfect way that these game designers have just honed over the decades.
The dopamine rush, just the gold that you're constantly collecting, and the music.
The music is fucking awesome. Like, I think that, you know, as good as Mario Kart is and as iconic, not Mario Kart, Mario in general, and as much of an earworm as those, you know, themes are, Donkey Kong has always had the cooler music. It is fun. It is, you can't stop bopping away to it and humming it after you've been playing it for a bit. There are so many things about this game that are top tier for the year for games for a long time, I feel like.
And the way they managed to like tie in all of these different eras where, you know, Donkey Kong's a weird one where he's this antagonist in his first appearances, and then for most of what people know of him has been developed by a British company with a very different sensibility to the way Nintendo of Japan do things. And so they're back in the control room while having to like feed in these other, you know, versions of him and other little callbacks, but still make it feel cohesive within this world, which they do a really good job of. Like Cranky shows up, Diddy and Dixie show up. And yeah, those characters feel very different to what they're doing, but they're also like touching on the arcade era of him in a really neat way. The like little music tracks that you can get for your little hideaway while bringing in all these new characters. Pauline, of course, being sort of a reference to the original arcade game, and also Mario Odyssey is really cool. And yeah, bringing back King K. Rool, I thought was done super well, really satisfying. And even though the game doesn't have like a story or like, you know, a written, you know, story, but the actual like beats of what you're doing, and there's a little bit where you get separated, and then the reveal of it being K. Rool, all that's, and where the big final boss battle takes place, all of that stuff I thought was really nice and like still not to the level of anything like a Death Stranding, obviously, but just like probably like a little more than they tend to do with the Mario games generally. I liked, you know, having a little offsider that is actually talking to you, which you don't typically get in the Mario games. He just kind of is running around doing his thing, rescuing the princess, and then that's that. I thought it was cool. Just so fun. I'm so glad this game exists. I thought, again, it was weird that people were like, why wasn't this the launch game when it had come out a month after the console had launched? Seems like it is a launch game. Like,
I think those people just want to complain about anything.
it's bizarre. It's like it's the strategy of it launching day one with this game, which is a bit of a sidestep. I think it's, of course you'd launch it day one with Mario Kart, but then not having to wait months for this to come out of the gate, which, you know, for Switch 1, we did have that big gap of Breath of the Wild in March and then Odyssey was in like September or something. So it did feel like a huge desert in the middle there. These two coming out back to back within a couple of months was just a great way to kick off the console. And yeah, I love that they trusted the character and their team to do something a bit outside of the box for the beginnings of this console. A great fucking game.
Yeah, it was third best for me. We've spoken a lot about games in our list and just games we enjoyed this past year that had taken an existing premise or existing genre and mechanic and combined it with something to make it feel fresh. But my number one game of the year is a game that you also liked a lot, Tommy. It is a game that I feel like did something completely unique. I'd never played a game like this. I'd never experienced a piece of media like this. The way it was told, the way you interacted with its mechanics, it really truly felt like someone 500 times smarter than you had created this beautiful puzzle, and any progress you made along the way was so satisfying, so rewarding. There are depths to this game that I will never discover because I'm not 500 times smarter than I am. My favorite game of the year was Blue Prince. It just completely blew me away, if I can say that.
The only thing you could compare it to would be like, I guess it's kind of a rogue-like, but even then that feels like that's sort of underselling it. I don't know that it's really got too many of those elements because it's not about just having the best run you can have. You are trying to gain it. Yeah, what was the description of it? Where it's like, it's not the power-ups. The power-ups that you're getting are knowledge. You're just like knowing where things are. So you're not looking to, oh, now I've unlocked this thing in the game and that's like a permanent buff. Like you do get that permanent buff, but the permanent buff is just something that's in your head that now you know for the next run. It's not like a, button that you now push to do this. You just know how those two rooms connect and now you're hoping for the elements of luck and skill to coalesce to get you to that exact same position again.
Yeah, it's not so much that it's taking existing genres and utilizing them in a different way. It's taking different game design techniques almost. It's using the concept of resetting everything you have on your next run. It's using, concepts of puzzles that have existed potentially previously. It's using randomness, which obviously is just a massive part of video games. But it's using it in a way that is like everything that's employed to create this game feels like it exists for this game to exist almost, the way it's like, it's just so carefully, purposefully created where like the development process must have been so complicated. The amount of fucking whiteboards covered in stuff with lines drawn to 7 other things to get this intricate clockwork mechanism to work properly and work the next day when everything has been refreshed and randomized. It's just unfathomably impressive. I'm so impressed by this game. on just a purely intellectual level, let alone it is fun to play. It's fun, it's satisfying, you feel smart for making the next connection that unlocks the next aspect of the game. And yeah, it's one of those rare games that feels like you could boot it up now, having played it for hours and hours, and kind of just like get to the goal pretty quickly, like obviously there's the randomness, but the fact that you now know everything you know about it, it almost makes it more impressive that the first time you started it, you were like, what the fuck is going on? I don't even understand what's happening.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, it's obviously not to say that this is impossible, but I think it's very hard to play it now in the way that we played it and that a lot of people played it who got onto it early, is that going in and you've not seen anything quite like it before, but it's basically, here's how it works. You're filling out this grid and you're trying to get up to that room. And you just think, oh, okay, I get it. So some of them I'm going to be blocked off and I've got a set number of steps, but I've just got to snake my way around and then I just literally need to get to that square on the map. But then you do, and the door in there isn't open. And then you've got to rethink that. And then all of a sudden you're going underground. Like the way that it sort of starts to slowly peel back things, where I think it is designed in such a way where the version of it that you think it is in the beginning seems very fun and compelling and simplistic and just like a little, roguelike-y puzzle game sort of thing. But then those first couple of threads that you start to pull out where you're like, oh, fuck, there's so much other shit under the hood here that it was just not apparent in the beginning. And I think that version of it, that simplistic version of it, would still be a really fun, sick puzzle game if it was just like a phone game or whatever. It was just like, yeah, you got to try and fill in. I initially thought maybe the trick was like you're trying to fill in every square on that grid. You're wanting to like get into every room. I thought that was sort of the hidden objective. But yeah, there's so much other stuff to it.
I mean, I remember, when we were talking about it and, when I put in our chat, like, I just realized that you can go outside. And that just being like, wait, what? That you beat your head against one of the various walls in this game enough times. And it's like such a fun feeling when you play a game like this, even something like an Animal Well, where you just, you have that moment where something clicks and you're like, oh, why didn't I do that? And then it seems ridiculous you never even tried it. It just has so many of those moments throughout.
And it hasn't, like, really led you to that in any way. There's no. A more inelegant version of this would have, like, notes that you're finding that are like, hey, Haggood's going outside. And you'd be like, oh, I see. Like, you saying, like, oh, yeah, you get that sweeping cinematic thing where it goes through the door. Like, what if I just turn around? I wonder if the door's closed behind me. And it's not. Guess what's there? Outside. I read this in the interview that I read with this guy that Jason Schreck did for Bloomberg. He talks about how he just was like so keen for it to all feel really believable. And like, the whole thing of, if I have in video games, it's like, what's the combination to the safe? And then it's like, oh, you find another memo and it's got a person's birth date on it. And that's the combination. But he's like, if I had a safe in my office, would I make the combination that? And would I then also just have that written down on a scrap of paper somewhere? In just a random message? Of course I wouldn't. So it's like, you have to make things that are going to, people need to be able to solve the game or solve the puzzle, but him wanting it to feel like this is how things really happen in the real world, not just a very artificial thing that's invented for a puzzle where like, oh, this scrap of paper on this side of the mansion and this scrap of paper on the other. Oh, and if you look at them, they're ripped in the same way, so they fit together. It's like, why are they in separate rooms? Like, doesn't, like...
Yeah. Like, there's a great, there's so many examples of this. They're being like, oh, I think someone carved that into this tree. There's like a note where it's like, oh, we carved blah, blah, blah into a tree on this day to remember this, and then you go to the tree and it's been cut down. And so it's like, oh, yeah, that probably would happen in real life. Fuck, how do I solve it now? And then the solution also makes perfect sense. It's so intelligently designed, which if and that's a great philosophy of like at every stage being like, does this make sense if it was real? And not to a crazily constrictive degree, but to the degree that puzzles make sense and they feel more satisfying to solve when it does make sense in the end. It's I
feel
it's
like
so
you
smart.
can get in some of these in games that have puzzles, you can be either bogged down by the real world logic would dictate this, and it's frustrating that that's not a solution, or you feel like, okay, I'm being asked to buy into a certain version of video game logic, and so I've now bought into that, and therefore that's how this would work, and that's still not working. You know what I mean? Like, if you're asking people to adopt a whole new set of rules for how things should work, it's kind of impossible to adhere to that in a consistent, satisfying way.
But I also thought that the story that's being told sort of in the background the entire time is great and engaging. And the presentation is cool. Like the visual style is great. It works perfectly for it. Everything's very clear, but everything has character to it. The color motifs and the illustrations in the game. It's just so impressive. It is this person's debut game, which is just insane.
Beautiful music
really
that
cool.
is triggered at such great moments where you do something really significant, and these beautiful pieces of music that start playing that feel very evocative, but also so rewarding and really like do a nice thing of letting you know that like you've done something hugely significant for either this run or for, what you now know for future runs. Just a masterpiece, just a real
absolute masterpiece,
perfect piece of art in every way. And yeah, as you say, something that is not like anything else, which is so like, it's got the random roguelike elements and it's set in the first person view are really the only things, but you wouldn't call it a first person game, nor would you call it a roguelike. So it's literally just like those just by the fact that they also exist, but it's not trying to do either of those things. It is just a whole new format of something. They came up with the idea for the game and then they were like, well, I guess I'll use some existing game design principles to make my vision come true. Great game, 10 out of 10. Loved it. Yeah. Do you want to do a couple of our honorable mentions?
Let's do. Maybe we just we don't have to spend too much time on them, but I've got a few.
I don't have many. I would have liked to have played more of South of Midnight. I thought that was fun, the little bit that I played of it. I really enjoyed what I had played of Doom: The Dark Ages. Very fun, very satisfying, very violent. The medieval setting really worked for it. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is a lot of fun. It is great to have a version of that formula on the Switch 2 running at a consistent frame rate and being at a higher resolution. I think that was like the one stumbling block of the previous one, so that was very rewarding. Once Upon a Katamari is a great great updated version of that formula, done really well, very, very fun to play, very fun to be back in that world. And just because of the bit of it that we played together, Split Fiction I thought was great. I don't know that I know that is on a lot of like year-end lists as people's favorite game. I don't know that a game that I'm only playing in a co-op could... I mean, I guess maybe it's... I don't know. It's hard to detach for me because we were doing it for videos for sort of a work purpose and it was very fun. Maybe if I was playing it all the way through in a leisure capacity with my partner, it might be up there. I think what it's doing very well and it's a great version of that. It's just hard for me to imagine a purely multiplayer thing being my being on my end of year list because I don't know, but a step up from It Takes Two, I thought.
Yeah, I kind of find it, like you, hard to rank it all. Like, it was a really fun experience, but, like, it's almost like, do I put us going to the pub on my end-of-year list? Because it's like, I mean, I'm not going to just sit at home and drink, but spending time with my friend was really fun. So,
Yeah.
like that is how I think about these co-op games. But
Yep.
but like, yeah, I can't say there were any faults with it. Really, it was really well executed. Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff on here that I'll just list that are games that I enjoyed, but I didn't play enough of to even consider. I enjoyed Hell Is Us. I enjoyed Chronos: The New Dawn. Clair Obscur, like I said in part one. Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii was earlier this year. And
Yes.
I enjoyed what I played, but I feel like I need to give it more time to really judge it. Monster Hunter Wilds, Doom of the Dark Ages, and The Seance of Blake Manor, I just started. And then games that I did play enough of to judge, but just didn't make the list. Tony Hawk 3 and 4 remake. I thought it was a great remake. Assassin's Creed Shadows was what I was referencing before, where it is very similar to Ghost of Yotei, but it feels a bit bloated and a bit lacking in the same kind of character and polish. But it honestly was a really fun game. South of Midnight's also there. Outer Worlds 2 I haven't played enough of yet. Bionic Bay was the 2D platformer, the puzzle platformer that I really enjoyed at the time. And we both started this game, Ooh, or OOO.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I hit a block and I didn't get past it, but it's probably something I should go back to.
Yes. Same. It did seem
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
What a fucking year. Some
Yeah.
games this year that are, I feel like I say this every year, but maybe more so than any year. Some games for me this year that are in the absolute all-time category. I think
Yep.
like I've had more games that I've enjoyed that are going to stick with me for a long time than ever before, potentially.
I think also games, if they're not like genuinely debut games from developers, games from developers who are quite new that broke through and I think show so much promise and potential for the future.
Yes.
Yeah, that we had great AAA games, but we had so many exciting breakthrough games from indie developers. Yeah, I think it was a really fun year. If you take away all of the industry machinations, I think the games that came out were fucking great. And man, we're going to sit down soon and watch the Game Awards announcements. And
Yes.
I think there'll be a whole lot more next year that we can sink our teeth into.
It does feel like there's, a lot of, for all the issues, and there's been a lot of like microtransaction and live service stuff in the past, like we're in a good spell of just real high level creativity, even from like some of the bigger studio stuff.
Yeah.
Like a company like Nintendo who have, they're as bad as corporate as it gets, going, let's make a Donkey Kong game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's take this kind of swing is cool. Like it feels like
Yeah.
Same with Death Stranding too, getting a huge budget to just do this freaky fucking story and people really responding to it is good. So as much as there's a lot of negative stuff behind the scenes, hopefully great creative stuff continues to come out. That is the thing that sort of leads the way, and it leads to more high level shit.
Yeah. Great year. We're pre-recording this, so it doesn't feel right to do like our big thank you and all that stuff. But it's been an interesting year for us. A new year, a new approach. But it's been really, really fun. It's been great to work with you once again, Tommy. And it's been pretty good to be your friend. In that corner. No, it's just like, it's a joy to do this, and you're the reason that I have so much fun, Tommy. But our listeners are also just fucking great. We have so much fun on the Discord. The continued Patreon support from people is the reason we're still doing the show, and it is very much appreciated. And we are very grateful and just very lucky to have the audience we have. We got to see him sometime soon. We got to get out there on stage again and have some beers with the filth. But just a really fun year. One of the more enjoyable years doing the pod. I can remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Same to you, Ben. We had a soft reboot at the start of the year. Bit of a challenge to kind of, figure out what we were going to do, but it is super fun every week to chat video games. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's stuck with us, who's sent us messages throughout the year to say that they appreciate that the vibe has stayed consistent on the show. If you're still listening, if you're still on the Patreon, it's pretty nerve-wracking going into the start of a year with having a big format change. It's not going to be for everyone. You have to accept that, there's going to be some people that don't want to stick around because they want the thing to stay exactly as it was. I do that with plenty of things, so I totally get it, which is why I guess it means so much to know that there are people that have stuck with it because
Yes.
I am not built like that.
Yeah, you were all better people than us.
Yeah. So thank you to people who have taken the time to drop a message and say that they're that they're still enjoying the show and that we've kept the quality up because it's it was pretty I guess daunting way to start the year, but it's been very not easy, but it's been very, very enjoyable and
Yes.
pretty relaxed, honestly. Like definitely things to worry about and whatnot, but for the most part, we've also been very lucky that a lot of fucking shit came out this year.
Yeah. And also thanks to Jen Fricker and Greg Larson for doing like 2-month plus stints on the show, doing some pop culture recapping. Ben Russell was also a guest. I'm sure we had several other guests this year. Levens, of course. Yes.
Yep.
Anyone who's been a guest on the show, anyone who's written in, contributed in any way, it all makes the show happen, and it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for your support throughout the year. Let us know any things you'd like us to consider for 2026. Always happy to hear from people. That is going to do us. Get on the Patreon if you would like to support the show. We are continuing to bring stuff out over the break, as is the case here on this feed. And that is going to do us. We'll be back next week. We will have our 2026 preview episode where we're going to look ahead to what's going on in the next year. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time. And as we say here at the end of every episode of Filthy Casuals, the game of the year at the Game Awards goes to Super Dassilo Land. It was so good that it managed to win in a year that it wasn't even eligible to win.
I had all that money on Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour.